When you're driven, the need to accomplish a goal is relentless. Hard work and ambition compel you to do whatever's necessary. In my work as a personal injury trial lawyer for 18 years, it's common to meet driven people. Those with drive can have different personalities, careers, or backgrounds, but they possess one common factor. Despite their passions, driven people want to surround and motivate themselves with other driven people. If you want to learn how to overcome obstacles by learning from others, then tune in here. This is the Driven Crowd Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to episode 16 of the Driven Crowd Podcast, fueled by Snelling's Law. I'm your host, Scott Snellings. Today, we have a couple of Aussies in the studio with us. They brought the Australian dining experience to Frisco a few years ago with one of my favorite local restaurants, the Aussie Grind. I love trying new coffee shops, so I was naturally checking out the Aussie Grind when I first met these two. It was early one morning, and I was maybe the first person in their shop. We started chatting and really hit it off, and now we have a great friendship. The Aussie Grind is one of my absolute favorite spots in town to grab breakfast, and I'm so excited to get to sit down and talk with them today. Lui and Angie, welcome to the Driven Crowd Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Scott.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. Tell us where did you grow up and how did y'all meet?
Goodness, gone that far back. It's only an hour. Well, I grew up in the Blue Mountains, which is just west of Sydney. And then I was born into a Navy family, so I moved around quite a lot. So I was able to experience a lot of the East Coast. And then I moved out. My final stages in Australia was I moved to Brisbane, and that's where I met Lui. I started working for his family's company, which I believe that he had a bit of a hand in getting me the job.
Maybe a little bit.
Unbeknownst to me. And then we sparked up a really good friendship, and then, things developed from there, and then that's when we met, and then go back to your...
And then I was born and raised in Brisbane, and, we had our family business, I suppose, for ever since I was a kid, so just working in there,
so it was a wholesale food business with a strong Italian heritage, and that's what, they used to import a lot of goods from Italy, and I was in food service, so I'd go see restaurants, and he was in coffee, and then he would make me go and do all his work for him. And then after the family sold out of the business was when Lui said to me that he wanted to open a coffee shop. And I was in the motor industry. I was a new car sales manager. So that's a terrible idea. Okay, I'll come and decorate. And then I decorated, and then I never left.
He kept you in the door.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So I'd come in the mornings, and before I went to my other job, and I'd finish up some days. It was just too hard to leave. And, we built such good relationships down there that it was like, okay, well, let's both run it. So, that's when the relationship / business relationship commenced.
There you go. So, Angie, you grew up in a Navy family. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How was it having to move all around? How often would you move?
Oh, my dad was out of the Navy by that stage, but once you're in the Navy, you always have that mentality. So, it was challenging. So I never really got my roots down anywhere, but we did so much traveling and got to experience so much. I kind of think it outweighed having, your friend that you've known since kindergarten still be in your life. I don't really have that anymore, but the experiences that I had and things I saw, it was just, I don't think you can replace that. And I think people underestimate travel, and I think it's a really important thing, especially for children growing up, to experience so much. So I felt lucky as far as that goes,
It's absolutely amazing, especially here in America, how we just don't put any kind of emphasis on that. When as Americans, when we travel, we go with our checklist, right? Like, oh, we're going to go to Italy and we're going to see these 10 things in 2 days, and we're going to race around. And now we can, we have a picture of ourselves in front of it, and we can say, yes, I saw that, as opposed to taking a month and going and actually living in a place and experiencing the culture and getting to know some people and figure out, hey, this is actually how the locals do it.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity in law school to go study abroad in Australia, in Sydney, and I lived right across from UTS, University of Technology, Sydney, and kind of in the Chinese section right there, and it was absolutely amazing. I tell people they had to drag me back on the plane. I did not want to leave, but I think to your point, experiencing those different cultures really broadens your mind, it broadens your experiences, and is so important. When you traveled, were you traveling just around Australia, or were you?
Initially, I wasn't quite as lucky to go abroad until I was in my late teens. But because Australia is such a diverse country, I was able to sort of see a lot more. And like you said, that section of Chinatown in Sydney, you have little tours there. So and my mum and dad were pretty well travelled in the early years, so I was able to get a lot of culture from there. But yeah, I do agree. I think Americans work way too hard. And when they say they're going to the beach, we're like, oh, where are you going? They're like, Galveston. We're like, oh, okay. Yeah, like it's pretty. And I think it's only because it mainly comes down to how hard you all work here. Really hard.
We do. So Louis, did you travel much growing up?
Just a couple of little family holidays, but I mean, we were pretty much planted in Brisbane, and I was a little bit boring, I suppose.
No,
but
you went to Italy as a child to learn the coffee game.
I did,
as well.
when I was 18, I went to Italy because my family used to import coffee from Sicily and then wholesale it out to various cafes and restaurants in Brisbane. So I was lucky enough to stay in 3 months in Sicily with the family who roasts and experience a bit of that. That was pretty cool, actually. So, but even like you can see the difference between like the kids who come into our restaurant here and even back home, like the ones who travel, who are lucky enough to be able to do that, and not just for like a vacation, but to, for schooling and that sort of thing, like how different it is when they come back. And I think it is definitely valuable life skills and I like trying to encourage all of our kids, if you can go travel somewhere, like do it, because it's like, where have you been? Some of our guys who are like, in their mid-20s and they've like never been to New York or to Vegas. And I'm like, man, it's like a 3-hour flight, like
Right.
for us, it was like, it was months of planning, a 17-hour flight. And then, but there's so many awesome places you can see, I suppose. But yeah.
And when he says kids, he doesn't mean our kids. He
Yeah,
means us.
our staff are our kids.
Right. Yeah. So growing up in Brisbane, that's right there on the Gold Coast, right? And so you grew up. Were you on the beach? Were you close to the beach?
I was not.
No, well, I think we were about an hour away.
Okay.
Brisbane's
Yeah.
about an hour away from the Gold Coast. But we would go one step further. We'd spend a lot of time in Byron Bay, which is the easternmost point in Australia. It's beautiful.
Amazing.
Beautiful. So,
Yeah.
it's not many people talk about that. The Gold Coast is kind of like, I think, I haven't been in Miami, but kind of like that.
Gotcha.
And then Byron Bay is just this little picturesque place that people like Miley Cyrus buy
Yeah.
property in. And then
You've got amazing beaches, and then on the other side, you've got this lush hinterland. So you kind of like get the best of both worlds.
rainforests and,
Yeah.
Oh,
but
wow.
but it's also too. It's if you don't mind, like you'd be serving your breakfast with their armpits hanging out. And
I'd
things
say
like
it's
that.
almost a bit Austinish.
Yeah,
Kind of like a
Austin,
little bit cool, but like just a great
But
food
yeah, there's
scene.
there's no McDonald's, there's no big corporations there at all. They've managed to keep all that out, but.
Wow.
Yeah,
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, we definitely recommend people when they go, where should we go? We're like always try and get them to go there.
To Byron Bay, yeah.
Byron Bay. All right.
Byron Bay.
So it sounds a bit like Cairns in terms of having the rainforest and the beach. And I was lucky enough to go up there and get to go dive the Barrier Reef,
Oh,
which
wow.
was probably the sickest I've ever been on the ride out there and on the ride back.
Sorry about that.
Oh my gosh. But absolutely beautiful country. All right. So Louis, you grew up, your parents were entrepreneurs, it sounds like, owned a wholesale business. Is that something that you always wanted to do, was to become an entrepreneur?
It's funny, like it was never really spoken about, and actually it was my granddad that started it. So my granddad, this is on my dad's side, he immigrated from Italy. So all 4 of my grandparents immigrated from Italy to Australia. But on my dad's side, he immigrated first, had nothing, cut cane in North Queensland to save money, right? And then eventually brought his wife over, and then he started a little convenience store in Brisbane, and then he would like import all the olives and pasta and that sort of stuff, like slowly growing it from a little store for all the immigrants, all the Italians and the Greeks and that. So I suppose he definitely was entrepreneurial. He helped a lot of people come from Italy to Australia as well. He helped with like a lot of the different programs. But I you know what? It's funny. I've never really, like, I've known him to be like a really fierce businessman, because I feel like that the generation that comes with nothing, like you've got, I don't know, it's a bit different, but they're just fierce, I'm definitely a bit softer compared to him and even my dad.
Right.
But I mean, I guess they were. And then my dad was a workaholic as well. And I do love that. And I've never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I just love to, it's exciting for me to think about different opportunities and how we can fix things and where we can go. And if that doesn't work, what we can do. I don't know. I guess maybe I am an entrepreneur, but I don't want to sound like a,
You hear it here
like some
Absolutely.
people like get a business card and they register an LLC and it's like, oh, that was $400. I'm going to put entrepreneur on my business card, and it's like, I don't know. I think it gets thrown around a little bit.
I think that we're funny because we have to be doing something before we claim it, and so it's. I think there's a little bit of a different mentality. We're starting to learn not to shy away from the spotlight now, because that's normally what we would have done. We would have been like, let them. Now it's like, well,
even now, it still took some encouragement to get you here.
That's only because we've been insanely busy.
so time, Paul.
But I don't know, like, you guys, have you heard of the term tall poppy syndrome?
That's the other
Tall
thing.
poppy syndrome.
Tall poppy syndrome is like,
It's very rife in Australia. It's terrible.
yeah, it is bad. So if you're doing all right in life and you work hard, you make a few dollars, and you've got a nice car, like you almost don't want to tell some people, because they'll be like, oh, you must be charging too much for that, or they almost give you like
They
hang a
knock
bit
you.
of
Yeah.
exactly. So you almost stand back a little bit. And I remember, like, once years and years ago, I worked at a fruit shop, and like super busy, great fruit shop, and I said to my boss, he bought this new Jeep, and I'm like, why'd you buy a Jeep, or why didn't you buy Mercedes? He's like, you know what? He's like, if I get that, he's like, then people think I'm charging too much money, and it's easy for me to get this Jeep and option up with everything else and to not be really judged and people to give me a hard time than to, be like, oh, such and such, you're doing too well. Like, it's really bizarre. But like, we came over here, and
Do you remember the first time we drove through? Yeah.
And then like through, I mean, some of the nice areas like Highland and that sort of thing, and it's like people.
We were on a
houses,
holiday, and we're driving through these streets, and we're like, we can see in these people's houses, like,
and there's their
they're
Ferraris
parking their cars
and
out
like
the front. We're like, what
it's
is
almost
this
like,
place?
and to us, it's like, wow, you worked your butt off, like,
Yeah.
pat on the back, like, you deserve it, good on you. But it's
Australia,
almost
it's
the
not the
opposite
way.
back home. It's sort of like, yeah, it's really weird.
So success is not celebrated in Australia, certainly the way it is
little,
here.
It is, but you'll always have a little jab as
Yeah.
well, like a little
Yeah,
jab.
Australians have got a really good sense of humour, but sometimes it's a little.
We're a little,
It can be biting.
Yeah.
we are a little bit cheeky for
Yes.
sure,
Yeah.
and we're definitely to the point, and sometimes to a
Little bit of a
detriment, I
sharp
suppose.
point,
Yeah.
and it's just a little difference that we noticed straight away, and was like, wow, like you can get accolades for it. And the other big difference we notice is if you do fall down, you can get back up. We're down there. If you fall down, you stay down. Like, it's like,
Really?
and I never forget thinking of like when Tiger Woods first had his downfall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he was Australian, we would
I
forget
think his
about
career
him.
would be over.
Yeah. Whereas here, they were like, oh, good, come on, mate, let's go again. It's like, oh, okay. So yeah, if you're bankrupt, if you don't make it down there, it's very hard for anyone to give you like another shot.
So with that mindset in Australia, that has to make it 10 times scarier to make that call of, hey, I'm going to start a business.
Yeah.
I'm going to try something new. I'm going to leave my nice job and go strike out on my own to be my own boss.
Yeah.
Did you face that?
I think that we are definitely very innovative, but I think that we just aren't as, I won't say showboaty, because I'm not going to put down other countries. We sort of hold our cards a little bit more to our chest, I think. So
I think it's
yeah, there definitely is that innovation, that entrepreneurship, but it's,
yeah, it is hard to like take risks down there, because and also too because like our population is so much smaller, and the cities, everybody knows everybody. So it's not like if you do fail, you're gonna, like, you might as well put it on the front cover of the newspaper. Whereas here it's like, okay, well, let's step left, step right. And that was one of the things we saw. We thought, well, the opportunities that are over there when we were back here, back in Australia, was like, we've got to do it. We just have to do it, because if we keep doing what we're doing here, we'll only get so far. Whereas America has so many more opportunities and so much more, possibilities for us to be able to create the empire that we're dreaming about.
All right. So you make the decision to start the coffee shop over there, and you get suckered into being a part of it as well, Angie.
Yeah.
How does that go? How do you How do you start it, and how did you grow it?
It was very grassroots. Like we drove around for a long time, found our spot. It was only like a little tiny little corner in an old building, nearly 100 years old. So very eclectic, and we painted everything ourselves. We got like the benches, like we did everything because we were on a pretty small budget. And then I guess we opened and just built up that business from the start.
It was the things that we did to start it off were like late nights, early mornings. We literally did it hands on, and then we'd get a curveball with the plumbing and all the things that you learn, along the way of what you've got to do. And then we took over the next section and built the kitchen because we initially just started as like a basic coffee shop. And then,
like a coffee shop here,
Yeah.
I suppose, where you've just got like a couple of pastries and a few sandwiches. But
then we took over a section and built the kitchen from scratch. It actually was originally like a storage room.
Yeah,
We converted it, and then, when we look back at them, we're like, oh goodness, we've really got it good over here now. But we had that for 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had a situation that showed up with a lease problem. We had I'll talk about this because Louis gets a bit bitter. Let's just say it wasn't really by the book, and we were unfortunately not able to sell the business at all. We had to pretty much walk away from it due to a underhanded deal that was done behind our backs. And so my goodness, the community was so amazing. We had like wreaths put at the door. Like we had people shave their logos into the back of their heads,
and
like
get tattoos.
Tattoos.
We had a crown logo.
My God, people were. It was, and the closing party, people were like trying to take bits of like the restaurant to remember it by. Like it was
pretty cool.
It was amazing, the support we had. But we by that stage we had kind of like 12 months notice of that going to be happening. So we came over here. We did as much groundwork as we possibly could with the plan of relocating. So it was kind of like a door got slammed in our face, so we just kicked one open. So that's how it happened.
Did you consider, you had the culture, right? You had the following, moving to a different building and just continuing to grow there?
We did. We had something in our lease, though, that we couldn't be within a certain radius. So
and we could have fought it, given the opportunities now, but we also knew that we were just going to do the same thing. And as much as we love our motherland, it is very hard to make it down there. Like it's, within 1 block radius of where we were, there were 4 places that were exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like it was, we had one place that was literally took a photocopy of our menu and just changed some of the words. Like it literally is that saturated with what we do down there. And we knew when we travelled over here that we were a little bit different than what was here. Like we had some opportunities to do that, and it's like, well, we could have changed it. We could have taken the name and just
But we might have pulled a few of our customers with us, but it's very different because Brisbane, I don't know, I haven't looked for a long time.
2.8, I think.
It's done into like different suburbs, right? And there's like dozens of coffee shops, and it's all independent. Like when you're talking coffee shops, it's like 95% of coffee shops are all independently owned. So
you're not talking Starbucks.
No. Starbucks had a crack down there. I think they opened like 300 and something stores, and
they
then
ended up closing a couple of years back, like 70% of their stores in Australia, because our coffee scene is just so strong. So, and even restaurants, like 70-something% are independently owned as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a bit of a it's very different scene. It's almost like, I keep on saying Austin, but there's so many independents in Austin, and that's kind of like Australia. And so, not just like on Preston Road, there's like all your businesses, but there's shops hidden away in like suburbia, in
converted houses, and it's a different game. So we could have flogged that horse, but we wanted to ride the new one.
There you go.
That's very interesting.
So when you first made the decision to start the coffee shop, obviously you looked around and you said, okay, I think there's a spot for us here. What was your vision? Did you have a vision put together, or you just decided, you know what, I want to open a coffee shop, I'm going to make this work?
For me, it was because I didn't really do too well in school. And then, I worked in my family's business since I was 11 all the way through. I did like a little bit of plumbing and a few other little bits and pieces here and there, but we ended up selling our share of that company. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I'm like, I've been in and out of restaurants since I was 11. So it kind of like was the next progression for me, I suppose, to open up a coffee shop. And then we just kept on adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. So I mean, I never really had a plan or a business plan. I guess it was kind of let's open to see what happens. So
And then we were forced to have business plans.
Yeah, banks like to see business plans.
Oh yeah, so does immigration. Just for the record.
Yeah. I would imagine immigration wants to make sure that when
was
you
a
come over
thing.
here, you actually are going to be able to survive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. That was definitely a thing. So yeah, it was. So we obviously in the process we had to plan very hard. And what was the business plan that was required? Like 5? Was it 5 or?
I think it was either a 5 or 10 year sort of like projection.
Yeah.
But
So, and if you can picture being in the US consulate in Sydney, standing there with them behind a glass wall saying, flicking through paper, deciding your fate. Yeah, it was a lot.
that was a little bit scary.
That would put a pit in your stomach for sure.
Oh, yes. I think the only thing scarier than that to me in my life has probably been my driving test. Like, it was terrifying. It was so scary. Well, you go into a room, then you go into a lift escorted, and there's a door in the elevator. They put a key in. You don't know where you're going.
And all the guys who work there are from America with like
They're
all their
carrying
machine guns and that.
And we where we're from, that's not a thing. So this is in the middle of Sydney, in the city centre. There's no signs on the building because it needs to be protected.
But rewind a few months before that, where we'd come over here, given like a few $100,000 to this building company, this GC, and we're like, okay, we need this built because on our E2 visa, we had to spend like 70% or more on our project before we actually go to immigration. We're like, hey, can we please stay?
So before you can apply, you have to have that much.
Yeah.
So that's betting on the future.
Yeah,
right there.
we've actually fast forwarded a bit there, haven't we? But yeah, and then you're in this room, everyone can hear your life and what's going on because the person behind the glass is talking into a speaker.
It was so random.
Yeah, you can't take anything else in but your file.
It's kind of like going through airport security when you're
It's like a Men in Black situation. But yeah, and you're standing there, and I'm like, where's the restroom? There is none. Okay. Like
That's part of the test.
It is. And
So
then,
hold on, I'm gonna back you guys up for a second, just to make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
So you decide, all right, this opportunity is closing. We know we have about 12 months. We want to make the jump and go to America. There's a spot for us there. We're going to prosper there. You fly over. You do your research. You decide this is where we want to do it. You then have to give them lots and lots of money with zero guarantee that you're going to be able to actually immigrate over here.
With our particular
That
visa,
is
there's
correct.
2 ways that you can do it. So either you can buy an existing business, something that's going, and there is kind of like it's a little bit grey.
Yeah.
Like the amount that you have to spend is a little bit grey, but I think
They
that
say
like
substantial amount.
yeah, it says substantial, but I think that probably at a minimum would be about $100,000 investment at a minimum, right? So you can either buy an existing business, whatever,
You can buy
a service station,
donuts
gas station,
store, you can buy whatever you want.
and then you can get it written into your contract, like, okay, if we buy it and the visa gets passed, and it's fine, we'll do it. But because we couldn't find anything that was suited to what we wanted, right? Because like everything was dark.
So
what Angie wanted.
Yeah, well, the aesthetics weren't right anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
and also like because like a lot of restaurants don't have, and coffee shops, cafes have like your bar at the front with an espresso machine. Like that's kind of like the heart
The
of
layout, the way that the current restaurant is how they are in Australia, and we just couldn't find that here. Like,
So that's
our
why,
booth's going
yeah.
that way, and I'm like, So we could have found somewhere, bought it, gutted it, but it was kind of like that would have been money spent that also wasn't guaranteed. So we had driven around. So I don't know,
we'd driven around for weeks, like looking because we came to America we came to Texas on a vacation. So Ange, okay, we're going to go back again. Sorry, we've gone us around this podcast. So Ange,
Sorry,
Ange
everyone.
played roller derby, right? The sport of roller derby. And
Of course
so,
you did.
yeah, duh.
And so she
Obvious.
was in Team America and came
Australia.
Team Australia.
Wish I was in America. I would have had a gold medal, not a bronze.
So came over here on a tournament in the World Cup, and she's like, "You're going to love it in Texas."
And here I am with 20 Australian girls, and we were struggling because what we knew wasn't available.
Food, coffee.
So we were in the convention centre, and being handed like what's Dagwood dogs called over here?
Pluto, no. What are they
Corny
called?
dogs?
Corny dogs, yeah.
Corny dogs. We're like, we're athletes. We can't eat this. And like all the girls, I've got one that's a vegan. I've got one that's a celiac. I've got We're like, you can't just, and whereas Australian restaurants and cafes, everything's available all the time. So here we are playing roller derby, and I'm like picturing Louis back there slaving away, and here I am in America living the dream. And I said to him, like, we literally have to. You need to come over. You're going to love this. I'm ringing him. How are you going? Are you everything okay? Yeah, but you need to get over here, like now. And so yeah.
So you instantly fell in love with Texas.
Oh, 100%. I knew he would. I knew that was probably even more the fact that I loved it. I knew he was going to be home. I knew he was going to feel comfortable. So, and you should have seen him the first time we went to land in DFW, straight to the rent-a-car place. He's like, oh yeah.
What was it? What got you?
Just the scale of everything, because I mean we'd been to like New York and Vegas and that was all amazing, but I don't know, Texas just felt pretty homely. Like people were really friendly, and I don't know, it just definitely felt more homely. Like I picture trying to live in Manhattan. I'm like, well, firstly we couldn't afford to anyway, right?
Yeah, there's that.
And even in living in California and that the cost is.
So yeah, I think California is a little bit more like what we're used to, like our,
Sure,
the scenery and the lifestyle and the weather. But yeah, we just knew Texas was where it was at, and we'd done a lot of research, and we were really fortunate that there was so much research available compared to, the cities here sell themselves. They literally say, come here because of this.
right.
And it was just too easy. And we've still got the original draft book that we sat at home one night, and we did lines, we did columns, and we put the cities in the top, and we worked out medium incomes, we worked out, distance to travels, we worked out all of the, things that would make it logistically the best way to be and where we were going to make it. And Frisco was it.
Frisco was it.
Frisco was it.
But also like all the surrounding cities, like they've. Like Plano's awesome, Salina's growing so fast, like Prosper, even Dallas, like it's flourishing, and they're just wanting to pull in all the business. But ultimately Frisco was
at that time
number one.
Yeah, it was the city.
Yeah, yep. So that's how that kind of.
And
like
then
came to be.
so we landed with 2 suitcases each and our cat in an Airbnb for 4 days. We had nowhere to live because nowhere would have us.
Yeah, because we're kind of like Australia's also sometimes a bit like, oh, it'll be all right.
Yeah, that's the other attitude that we have.
Because we figure it out.
And so because our visa, we had to be all cash, so your credit score doesn't translate with you over there. So we sold all our properties in Australia, sold our cars, put our furniture on a 20-foot container. That took like 9 weeks on the water. So we literally took 2 suitcases of stuff in our cat. And then we finally found also, because we didn't have our social and all that sort of stuff.
Didn't have driver's licenses, didn't have social security
so
numbers.
We're trying to
fill out
house.
those online forms, and there's like blanks everywhere. We're like, ew.
It's like, enter your social security. It's like, don't have one.
What is the social security?
Yeah, so we kind of like kept on getting knocked back for a house to rent, and then we found a real estate agent, and we ended up being like, can you just tell these guys, we'll just give them 6 months advance. Like, we'll just give them 6 months rent. Like, that was the only way we could do it.
We didn't even look at it. We're just like, we just need somewhere to live.
Yeah, so, and then we got that, and our furniture was still a few weeks away, so we ended up like renting a kitchen set, a dining set, like just the basics. And and while that was going on, we'd drive around looking for a restaurant. So it was like, I don't know, we make it sound so like.
If we could write a book on it, how not to do it, we could also write that book.
Well, but to a certain extent, especially for you guys, like naivety is almost your friend.
100%.
If you knew what you were going to have to go through, what you didn't know.
I like what you just said, because that's it. 100%. No, we wouldn't. Oh my goodness me. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Angie and Louie now would be looking at Angie and Louie then going, you guys are morons. What are you doing?
No, but now you fast forwarded 3 years, I'm like, roll that dice, do it. Yeah, but get lots of people to tell you how to do it. And we feel like little pioneers, because we've had a lot of people contact us on like, how did you go about it and what went wrong and what went right. But yeah, it was the being stuck back in Australia while the immigration process was going was probably the most nerve-wracking thing ever. And because we were going through so much personally as well. Louis lost his grandfather. I lost my dad within 10 days while we were down there. And here we are not knowing whether or not we're going to be able to go back. The cat was still here, though. The cat was still here.
Yeah.
So you left the cat here.
We had to leave the cat here because he couldn't go back to Australia.
We planned on going back for just like a week or 2 weeks. And then our immigration attorney at the time said, because we kind of like entered the country and we sort of did it a little bit differently than I guess he was used to, and he was worried we were going to get denied entry for coming in and out the USA like one too many times. So
we're down
he's
there
like, don't come back until December. This was in October. So I'm like, what are we going to do? Like,
we
we
were
had nowhere to live.
Job.
we were
had-
couch surfing.
We had nowhere. Yeah, exactly.
We were literally couch surfing, and,
So we
and
went
the
back to-
GCs here have got like FaceTime of like, does this look all right? And I'm like,
In the meantime, we're living at one of our customers' houses like for 2 months because he's like, don't come back. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, we're Andrew's sitting on the stairs crying, and I'm like, holy like we are in a friggin' pickle here. Like
Yeah.
what? And we just got on with it. So, and I guess it's lucky that for us that we just seem to gel, and like we've had a couple of those situations come up, and it's just like, what do? You just sit there
you
and
just got to
cry.
keep going forward.
You just keep on going forward, and you just come up with a situation, like a plan,
Yep.
So.
Well, and so I think that's hugely important, right? Especially for entrepreneurs out there, is there are always going to be those times when all four walls are falling in on you, and you kind of have to make a decision, right? You face it. You say, okay, yes, this situation sucks. Like I understand that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like everything's fantastic. This sucks. But then you got to take the next step, right? You either fold up and quit and go find something else to do, or you make the decision, all right, yes, this sucks, but there's a way through this. We got to figure out how to do it. How do you guys get to that point? So, obviously you've had some difficult situations.
We almost have really had no choice in quite a few things. Yeah. And then like looking back, you're like, oh, that wasn't too bad. But
Yeah, it wasn't.
I mean,
first thing we do is we make eye contact with each other. We're like, right, which part of it are you taking on? I'll take the rest of it. But yeah, it is really about being a team, and being able to sort of, think left and right. I've never seen anybody under pressure like he does. And I think that you've got to train yourself. Like we can be just absolutely packed, like you said, fires out going on everywhere. And I look at him, he's cool. If he's cool, I'm cool. So yeah, I think that it's just maintaining a cool head, working out what's the best plan, and just going forward. Yeah.
It's so funny. When I was in college, I bartended and I waited tables. And, whenever everybody would get in the weeds, that's what we call it. If you're in the weeds, you can always tell the people who are like the cool cucumbers and the ones who are just going to lose it.
Yep.
And all you got to do is just look up and look around when it's super busy. And you can tell the people that are faltering and the ones who are going to be okay because they're just like, hey, look, it's busy. We'll get through this. Yeah. All I'm going to do is focus on, this table, and then I'm going to go to that table, and I'm going to go to that table.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's a great trait to have. But to your point, how do you train yourself to do that?
Well, I think I was in the weeds, panic lady, always. And then I think that I've just taken little snippets of what he's done. And just, time, you've just got to think time will heal it, whatever's going on. If you keep going forward, as long as you don't drop your bundle in that moment, you can pick it up later. Like you can catch up. But yeah, it's about just trying to keep a cool head. But I think it comes back to playing sport and, training yourself to overcome situations when they're in front of you. It's unless you put yourself into a little bit of pain, you're not going to make it.
Yeah, you're not going to benefit.
Interesting.
It's kind of like going to the gym, feeling the pain, but then getting the benefit later. You've got to subject yourself to a little bit of it. We don't subscribe to the theory that everyone gets a prize because, they've stopped scoring kids' games in Australia. And it's like, well, I don't know if that's a thing.
You're going, well, how do you know who won?
Yeah, and that's the thing. They don't do that. And I don't think that that's going to create winners. Like you're not going to get every job you go for. You're not going to get every, mark that you want to on those tests. You've got to go through a bit of, learning experience.
Yeah, and I think that we struggle whenever we don't characterize for our kids like, hey, it's okay. You're not going to win. Right? My daughter is in jiu-jitsu and she's gotten just annihilated at several tournaments, right? It's like I almost ask her like, did you try to see how fast you could get choked out here, or what were we thinking here? No, but and she'll be upset because she didn't win any matches. And I'm like, hey, but how much better did you get? Right? Like you got in there and you did something that the vast majority of people have never done. Like you've been in combat.
That's the key.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really working with our kids and with our teams to say, look, you're going to fail. And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it hurts. It sucks. Nobody likes to fail. But that's how you grow, right? To your point, being in the weight room, you got to hurt.
Yep.
You got to try to lift those heavy weights, and eventually you're not going to lift it, and you have a spotter pull it off of you. But that's how your muscles grow. That's how you get bigger.
Yep.
Same thing with our personalities is you got to go through those difficult times to grow. So getting back to you being in was it the Consulate? Is that where you were with I picture like this big white room.
It is literally, you walk down the hallway and it's got all that literally, there's a glass wall that's facing in and it's a hallway and the lights are so bright. I can still see it. And then all the guys.
It's really traumatized you.
It is. And we got PTSD from it. And all the guys are standing there all in the straight black uniforms with the military uniforms with the guns across the front of them, and then there's the old school photos of the president, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what's happening right now because you are on US soil while you're there,
right?
And I'm like, if this is what it's going to be like, I don't know if I really want it. And then you go through the door, and then you're in those seats that you see that are all lined up, and they call your name, and one guy went up in front of us and he got denied because his paperwork wasn't right. And I'm like...
Yeah, well, he was... I think he tried to cheat the system a little bit and he didn't... You're supposed to leave like 8 weeks-ish for them to like look through your paperwork. So, I mean, really, they should know before you even get there. But he was trying to, put it in the night before. He's like, let me in. They're like, nah.
And then, I'm saying to Louis, you do the talking. No, I'll do the talking. You do the talking. And then, so I had managed to say that he was going to do the talking, and then I couldn't shut up, which is pretty standard for me, because this is one man behind the counter that you've never met before. He's deciding whether or not you should go back there and if it's going to make it. Like, he's flicking through and he's like, what do you actually want to do there? And you're like, yeah. Like, you literally are making, and then the stamp goes on. That's it.
So did you learn right then?
Right then that we're going to make it. Meanwhile, we've got families circling the block waiting to pick us up, and we're not allowed to book flights because they take your passport off you while they're there, and you literally then have to wait until it gets sent out again.
Yeah, because once you get approved, then they put the stamp on it and a little sticker and everything. So
it's got to go through that process, and you're literally in limbo.
So that had to be like crazy exciting. / relieving, right? You have all this money invested over there. You
talk about going for a ride at Six Flags, like up and up,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we are getting, like I said, we're getting phone calls, and Louis was working out. Oh, remember he's got the floor plan of the current restaurant, and he's like, we can't make it like this. There's not enough seats. Like, changing and the time difference. It's like 3:00 in the morning. He's taking calls from the architect and. It's like he's like, you're going to have to change where this is going. And, it was, yeah. And then when we got back over here and, things weren't where they should be, and we just had to sort of, okay.
I think the biggest thing, like the most important thing is that like when a situation happens, like you need to step back and take out like a bad situation and take out all the, like just dissect it and be like, okay, that's not going to happen again. We're going to do this, this, and this next time. Like otherwise, if you keep on making the same mistake over and over, then you're a bit of a dummy, right? So I guess that like in all of situations we've been in where it's been like so hard, it's like we just talk about it and then...
You don't realise how hard things are while you're in it. It's when you get back out the other side like, whoa, that was hard.
Yeah, I always say it's kind of like when you have a newborn. Right, you sit there and you really manage to survive off of like 3-4 hours of sleep. Like I practiced law off of 4 hours of sleep for several months, and I look back and I'm like, how on earth did I do that? How was I functioning? One, and then how was I functioning well enough to be doing my job? Mm-hmm. And it's funny, your mind and your body just kind of make it through, and then you don't realize. If you realized what you were having to do at that time, there's no way you would do it, right?
I think that's all mindset because you're like, I've got to.
Yeah.
Like,
and that was the way we were. If we didn't make it, we'd have to come back to Australia with our tail between our legs. And we were way too proud for that.
Yeah. And plus we would have lost like everything we'd worked so hard for, So, because, you leave that all behind.
Everyone would say to us, it's okay if it doesn't work out. You can come back. And we're like, oh, yeah, sure.
In your mind, you're like, that is
You're
never
never gonna-
happening. If
yeah.
I have to go
Yeah.
beg on the
Yeah,
corner,
yeah.
I am not going to go back with my tail between my legs.
Yeah, no, we were not. That's
Well,
not.
so Angie, you didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family.
No,
Your dad was a Navy man.
Complete opposite. Absolute complete opposite.
About as structured as it can be.
Right. Yeah. Well, there was that, but also too, I wasn't encouraged to do any further learning, or it was kind of like I was really left to my own devices and decided what.
And you ended up in roller derby.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Where all the misfits end up. But no, it was. It was. It once I got the taste for it, it's like, oh yes, let's do this. He was a very big influence on me.
And so you weren't kind of drug along in this. As soon as you got the taste of it, you were 100%.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, if I wasn't in it 100%, I've got to. I wouldn't say like in my role as, because Louis is the visa holder, I'm the spouse. That was very hard for me to handle. It was like I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't allowed to do anything visibly contributing, because that's part of the process. So that was really, it was a difficult period for me, because how long did the work card take?
Well, that one during COVID was like 9.
Yeah, so for 9 months I had to be invisible.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was very, very hard for me. And so I just had to really be super supportive, and because Australians are naturally, we're born feminists. Like, so to be just a spouse, and it was very, very bitter pill to swallow. So yeah, I had to do a lot of the the planning and the groundwork and things that I think that naturally we divide and conquer, and so I had to sort of push myself out of my comfort zone for a couple of areas there. But so now for the second spot that we're opening, I've been able to be a little bit more visible. Yeah.
All right, so we're running a little bit lower on time here. Tell us about Aussie Grind.
Yeah, you take over.
So the Aussie Grind, we try and be as authentic to back home as possible. So we do like breakfast and lunch 7 days a week. We extended our hours into the evening when COVID happened, because we just found all these great staff and got the process going, and we didn't have to lose them all. So we skeleton everybody's hours out, and kept everybody really. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's typical Australian style. So food, there's pastries. We do fresh juice and smoothies, and the craft coffee. So it's kind of like our little niche, I suppose. But
It was one of the struggles that we had. We didn't have a definition over here. Like, we would just be a cafe down there.
Yeah,
but here we're like, people are like, "What are you?" I'm like, "We're kind of everything."
we're like a restaurant
Yeah.
and a coffee shop in one.
Yeah, and that was a big learning curve for us too.
Yeah.
Because we noticed everywhere had on the outside of their building what they were, and it's like, what do you mean?
Yeah, it was a little bit funny at first, because
Yeah,
we wouldn't classify ourselves as a restaurant back in Brisbane.
No, definitely wouldn't. But that's what we are here. People would open the door and be like, "Oh, you're not just a coffee shop," and we're like,
Yeah, well, I remember the very first time I was there, I came in for a cup of coffee and I sat down, I looked at the menu and I was like, oh, wow, this looks amazing. I think I ended up ordering something to eat right there. But yeah, it's a full-on restaurant. You guys are just opening your second location or about to open it?
It's still a few months away. Yeah,
Yeah, still a few months away, and it's going to be a little bit different than the current place. We were overwhelmed with how much people actually, because Australia, it's like I said, they'll go out for a coffee, maybe have a breakfast. Everyone that comes in eats. And so our kitchen that we've currently got has got a lot of workload on it. And so we wanted to sort of eliminate a little bit of that by the second location. And so, yeah, it's going to be about 60% kitchen, and it's going to offer to go. And it's going to be a little bit more of a variety of what the Australian traditional bakery style offerings are. And we're also going to have a little bit of retail as well. So we noticed it because we make a lot of everything in-house. So all our preserves, all our like we bake our granola, everything is made in-house. So we'll be able to offer that for to-goes in retail packaging. And so, yeah, that's going to be the focus for the second one. It's called the Aussie Grind Provisions.
Provisions, okay. And where is that going to be located?
It's on Alpha.
Yeah,
Farmers
Alpha Road and
Branch.
Farmers
Yeah.
Branch.
Yeah, just off
Fantastic.
Inwood, yeah.
Well, congratulations, you two, on
Yes.
second location and another notch in the Empire Belt.
Yeah.
How many locations are we going for?
It
It
changes.
varies.
It varies. Depends on how confident.
this-
depends on how well you did that week.
This second one is going to be able to feed 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Because so we're looking into the prospect of being able to send out from that. So we're going to have a little bit more of a focus maybe on some end caps to do some drive-throughs and just make, just once the branding is out there and how good the coffee is, as you knew,
As
we'll be
I
able
know,
to
for sure.
be able to utilize a few little locations like that, and then that's-
Fantastic. All right, I ask everyone here as we close up, favorite books.
I'm currently reading the Wu-Tang book.
The Wu-Tang book.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
You like it?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So are you more of a biography buff?
Yes,
or,
definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
How about you, Louis?
I've been reading a book for the second or third time now from Patrick Bet-David. It's called Your Next 5 Moves.
Next 5 moves.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's business, and just trying to get like a lot more organized. So get as much as I can off that book and kind of like apply it to life so that we can murder 2023 and onwards. So that's kind of
Fantastic.
like that's my passion as well. So whereas Angie's, it's a bit more easy for you to switch off. I'm kind of like
He doesn't switch up.
yeah.
I may have been accused of that myself. For me, I consistently wake up between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, and I have some sort of an idea or...
That's why
I'm
you're
just-
our
I'm just
first in
thinking-
all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, plenty of times I just get up and get on with my day.
We should give you a key.
Hey, I'll be more than happy to sit in there and drink some coffee. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
both
you
being
for-
here.
thank you for
Congratulations
inviting us.
on location number 2.
having
And
us.
we'll be seeing you soon for a cup of
Absolutely.
coffee.
Thank you.
All right.